Hello, friends. So happy to have you here with us today at Radical Joy. If you've been here before, welcome back. If this is your first time with us, we're glad you're here. Each Wednesday, we're here with you talking about things that weigh on our minds and hearts, hoping if you're dealing with something similar, we can adjust both our perspectives as you listen. The more people I meet and the more places I go, the more I realize how important it is to make people aware of the fact that there is no shame in enjoying the parts of your life that are incredible. It's time for some radical joy, and this week, the three fingers pointing back at us are for the esteemed Dr. Tanya Pettiford Waits, better known as Dr. T. If it's not a difficult conversation in certain contexts, it's only small talk.
Yes.
It's not a conversation. What it is discussing the weather. It's complimenting your shoes.
Yes.
It's asking where you got that bracelet.
Mm-hmm.
That is what you do to fill time. When you are changing the world, you
Yes.
make difficult conversations.
That's
Growth hurts.
right. It does.
Evolution takes a moment, and it is often many don't survive in the way
Yes.
that they see themselves now.
Mm-hmm.
They must die and rise from the ashes in order to be a part of the evolution. They
Absolutely.
must move forward. They must change what it is they're doing. They have to almost change who they are and what they are, how they're made in order to
Yes.
survive the new iteration.
That's right. I mean, and they have to listen.
Yes.
They have to listen. I
Yes.
am not afraid now to say to someone, let me tell you what that tone that you just used with me feels like. It feels like you're attempting to, and then they're always shocked and, no, that is not. Well, I'm going to tell you that's how it came over. So I'm not
Yes.
afraid to let them know either, because I also feel like that's part of my job to do, to
Make them
inform,
aware.
to
Absolutely.
educate, right? If you don't tell them, they're not going to know,
100% right. And I
so
agree wholeheartedly. Sure.
yeah.
It's like, so we had this conversation yesterday. A friend of mine in the show, he used to work with Diana Ross very closely.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about they were recording something, and he says, "I'm sorry, Miss Ross, could you do that one more time?" And she says, "Why?"
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about how she was so difficult. And it's like, no. She wasn't difficult. She says, if I do it again, chances are very good it will be exactly the same.
Yes.
And you've asked me to do this again because something was not what you wanted. So I'm asking why for a clarification so what you wanted can be delivered in the next take.
Exactly.
And why I have to explain myself why I do it is beyond me.
That's right.
I've asked you why. Tell me why. We will continue as professionals.
Yes.
And I will deliver to the best of my ability what it is you're looking to see or hear.
That's right. That's right.
So simple.
That's not difficult. That's
It
just a
isn't
question.
difficult. It is a question. Thank you. Exactly. And I was like, and how many times have we read into that because a person of color, because a woman, because of this, because of that, that isn't
right.
just the normal old white dude asking the thing? Because if white dude asks it, we just step two, don't we?
That's right. That's right.
Holy mother. And then
That's right.
anybody else goes that, and we want to, okay.
Yes.
Again, pinned to my shirt. Here's the list.
Yes.
This one right here is the one I want right now. I'm pointing to it.
It's interesting that you use the pin to the shirt analogy, because when I was at Carnegie Mellon, there were 3 Black women in my class. And I want you to know that we did not look anything alike.
Okay.
Like, one person was 6 feet tall. I'm 5'3". The other person had a completely different skin tone, completely different. Like, we literally could not have been more different. However, they could never, and when we worked in the costume shop or the scenic shop, they could never get us straight. They would always call me, someone else's name and so forth. And I checked with all of them. They had the same thing. So what we did was we put our names on a piece of paper and pinned it to our clothes. And I stood up on the table in the costume shop and I said, "My name is Tanya." And I like shouted it out, not Cheryl, not Renee, Tanya. And we are nothing alike, and they were all like mortified.
Of
They thought I was
course.
maybe having a nervous breakdown or something,
Like, how
but
very dare
I
you?
wasn't. I was
Mhm.
just covering the ground I stand on. And
Thank you.
from that moment on, though, they never called us the wrong name.
Wow. Imagine. I
They've never
rattled the
called us the wrong
cage
name.
and we never had another problem with this very simple and yet crucial
Yes,
idea and issue. It is my name.
that's
It
right.
is the first idea of identity that I have, and you
Yes.
have tried to take it or confuse it or somehow negate it, and I
Mhm.
have taken it back.
Back. That's right. Yep, they
I
never
love
confused us
it.
again after
Of course
that.
not. Of course not. And that's just it. It's just so funny because now you are the difficult one, or you are the one like,
Yes.
and she just had an absolute fit.
And I'm
She
sure
stood
they
on the
did say that.
table.
I'm sure
She
that
pinned
was
her
the
name to her shirt. You were higher, literally. You put
yes.
yourself in a higher position than everyone else, which I hope that wasn't accidental,
No.
just to make sure everybody had to look up to you to know,
Yes.
and your children will know. Yeah, it's
That's
just, yeah, it's great.
that's right. That's
And
right.
and I mourn the fact that so often it takes such a show of primitive force in
Mhm.
order to get the simplest
The simplest.
modicum of respect.
That's right. The simplest, which is why I always go by Dr. T too.
Hell yes.
It's
Absolutely.
that I had a mentor, have a mentor. She's still with us. God bless her. She's 95 now.
Oh my gosh.
And she
Uh-huh.
walks around like the regal African queen that she is. She
Yes.
always wears this crown, and she has a walking stick that has amber on it. It's so gorgeous. Anyway,
Yes.
and she is gorgeous. And she said you need to number one, these young people need to see you um, and to recognize you as Dr. T because
Yes.
that inspires them. How
Yes.
many of you do they get to see? How many of you do they get to actually intersect with? To be so you've got to claim that, and I heard that message, and I kept it all these years because
Good.
it's been like almost 40 years now, where she told me that. She's like, and I always call her Dr. Mims. She's Dr.
Oh,
Mims to
wonderful.
me, no matter
Uh-huh.
what, right? And that's how it is. That's our names. That's our title. And she said,
Absolutely.
"You be that."
Yes.
And the thing is, when I got into academia, I started to notice that the white men were always called by their titles, but the women, and particularly the black women,
Okay.
were called by their first names or something.
I
So we're in
beg
the
your pardon.
room together and I'm like, "Okay, you're a PhD, but so am I. So then if you're going to call him Dr. So and so, then you're also going to call me Dr. So.
Mhm.
I mean that's equity. That
Thank
let's
you.
be equitable here,
Thank
right?
you.
And you're not giving me something, it's something I
No,
earned.
you
So,
earned it.
yes,
Exactly.
yes, it's something I earned, you
Now,
know.
something that you mentioned a moment ago, and I would love to explore just a little farther. You said you intersect. I
Mm,
love that verb, especially whenever it comes to encountering people,
yes.
especially people of import who make an imprint on your life, who
Mm,
literally leave their mark on who you are.
mhm,
And the fact, and I'm thinking back to my geometry days, and this was, gosh, a bajillion years ago.
mhm.
Once that line is intersected, it stays intersected. No
Yes.
matter how far that line goes, if you go back to where those two lines meet, they're still joined at
Mhm.
that specific point.
That's right.
So that line can continue to go into infinity in this direction. But if you follow it back to the origin,
That's right.
it's still intersected with Dr. Mims.
That's
And
right.
I love the idea of that because you are still connected, even though your journey takes you so far in another direction.
Yes.
that mark will always be a part of you.
Yes.
And
I
it's,
mean, she's
oh,
why that's another rite of passage moment,
yeah.
because that's another thing I did not want to do.
Okay.
I did not want to
What?
go. I didn't want to go get a PhD.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a
I
lot of
didn't,
work.
you know,
Jeez.
she called together a group of Black women who
Uh-huh.
were in the community. This is in Seattle, when I was in Seattle. She called together a group of us who were, leaders, who were like social justice warriors, who were, recognized members of the community.
Yes.
And she said to us, "You all are going to get a PhD." And I was like, "Why?" And she's like, "Because you are doing and saying radical things, and
Yes.
people need to hear them in a arena that can um, uh, uh, formalize and document them, so
Yes.
that they can be shared with other people, so that it can,
Yes.
and she said, and they're not going to listen to you unless you have some letters behind your name. And that's the keys that are going to get you in the room. Yes,
Yep.
it's not that you need those necessarily to say what you're saying, but if we want this to continue and to be passed on, if you want to change policy, if you want to
Oh,
implement curricular adjustment and change and transformation, you need to have these letters behind your name. And I was like, oh, I was afraid it was going to ruin my creativity and my art, to get so much in my head. That's what,
yes.
and she was like, and then I was making excuses, I can't afford it, I have three
Uh-huh.
children, I have and she's like, no, you're going to do it. So without her, input, and then what happened is I drew together a committee,
Mhm.
that from my that were my doctoral committee, my dissertation committee,
Right.
that included her. She was on it. Several. I think the head of the program, who was a Black man who I had intersected with in
Yes.
at Carnegie Mellon.
Uh-huh.
My only Black professor in the theater ever,
Right.
in the theater,
You know.
at Carnegie Mellon. He was on the committee. Angela Davis was on the committee, because I had intersected with her in my younger days, and then reconnected with her when I was in the national tour of For Colored Girls. She was teaching at San Francisco State.
Oh my God.
And she was the reason that they had a women's studies department there, and also that they had African American studies. And
Amazing.
and since we were in San Francisco on the national tour for 6 months,
Oh, wow.
I I got, and I didn't have things to do in the daytime.
Sure.
I went to San Francisco State and I asked her if I could audit her class, if I could just like be there,
Sure.
which she said, fine. We had tea. She invited me to her housewarming in
Wow.
Oakland. She became, a friend. I had that intersection way back,
Yep.
connected in the future. And she ended up on my doctoral committee. Um, and my
Oh,
entire doctoral committee were African Americans, which
good.
I needed, because what I was doing was saying the origins of theater and the dramatic form began in Africa.
Okay.
And, I was saying that. So that was going to mess with the folks that say Western civilization came from the Greeks.
Yep.
That was going to mess with them.
You're gonna
And
need
so
an
she
audience
said,
that's willing to hear.
yes. And she said, this is why you need your PhD.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. And you walk in there and you're having to defend it and you're like, "Okay, great." And you go through
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Ah,
Yes.
amazing. And it's I
Yes.
I love the fact that that's just it. Like she knew. She'd been fighting
Yes.
it. She'd been doing the
Yes.
things and she's
She'd
like,
been
"You
fighting a
need."
long time. Mhm.
Right. And now you are also carrying that mantle and you're walking
Yes.
in and you are swinging the sword and you're like, "Look, I didn't want to cut you. You
I
left me
did.
no choice."
Yes.
In the most pleasant, respectful way possible. I was just like, "I
Yes.
didn't have to do this.
Mhm.
I walked in here and already you came with your own list and piece of paper and you started crossing things out." I was like, "No, no,
Yes.
no. No, 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 no."
Yes.
And I love that, and it's just it's a realization that many people don't know that they're bringing to a table. They don't even know they're
Mhm.
at that table, I think, a lot of times.
That's right.
The fact that you educate them, again, respectfully, here is what I am feeling. You completely take the onus off an accusation.
Mhm.
What I'm
Yes.
saying is the way that I have felt because of what you said, this is
Yes.
what I'm feeling. Because
Yes.
I was met with this, this is now how I am seeing this situation. Please
Mhm.
inform me if that is your intention.
Yes. Yes.
And it keeps everything very neutral. There's not and
Mhm.
if there is someone that is a target in that, it is the I. It is
That's
not the
right.
you, which
That's
is so
right.
important. It starts a
That's right.
conversation because you don't want someone defensive. What you want is someone who's receptive. That's what I
Exactly.
want.
Exactly.
We're here to have a
Exactly.
conversation. We're here to talk about these things and break down these things that you may not know are making others feel a certain way. If you
Exactly.
did, it would probably shock and mortify. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I had no
Yes.
idea." And
Yes.
then we all find a way to break that down and build something better that
That's
we can
right.
all communicate on an equitable level.
That's right. That's
Love
right.
that word. Ooh, I love
Yes.
that word. We keep
Mhm.
hearing it, and I'm just like, okay, because you hear equal, and for some
Yes.
reason that automatically just puts everybody at some kind of like nails on a chalkboard situation because we've had a lot
Yes.
of conversations, a lot of voices over the
Mhm.
last few hundred years
Mhm.
that have now
Mhm.
put this taste in our mouths about that. But whenever we
Equal.
bring the
Yes.
word equity to the table, that also
Mhm.
implies that you've built something because whenever we
Yes.
talk about a home and, the value in something, that it
Mhm.
has built something in there. So the connotation in that already has something positive to it. And now we can apply it to these other issues. And I love it. I think that
I mean,
has a
it's kind of
much,
like the, um, the whole, conversation around colorblind.
ugh, yeah.
Right? You know, and, that has always rubbed me the wrong way from its first iteration,
Mhm.
and and the idea of intent versus impact.
Ooh,
Intent versus impact.
yes.
So, I began to interrogate people when they used it. When they said something about, I don't see color. I'm colorblind, and I go, what color is that rose? And they go, red. I go, okay, so you do see color.
Mhm.
Okay, so then what is it that you're really trying to say? Because I don't think you're saying that you don't see color because you clearly can. I mean, there are
Yes.
people who don't see color. I mean,
Right.
they can only see grays and shades. They don't see the actual. So I'm just trying to clarify whether
Right.
that's you or whether you're using it in a different kind of way.
Yes.
As an analogy of something. So,
Mhm.
what is it that you're attempting to say? And, I start to interrogate them. And I said, because I want you to know that I am Black and I embrace it fully. I love it. And it has taken me a lifetime journey to get to this place. And I do not appreciate you not seeing that
Thank you.
because that means you
Thank
don't see
you.
me.
Thank you. It also
Mhm.
implies a lack.
Yes.
Like, I'm willing to overlook it is almost the implication of
Yes.
that, and I
Yes.
don't like that. No, no,
No,
no. That is very
no.
much a part of who I am. That is not something
Yes.
to be forgiven. That is
Exactly.
something to be appreciated because
Yes.
it is different.
Yes.
It is
But
not your experience.
I also appreciate that people are attempting to say something different than that. And so what I say to them is say the different thing. Don't say that.
Yes.
Don't say I don't see color.
Right.
Say something else
Yes.
that you embrace people who are not the same as you. That you appreciate, you love the depth and diversity that it brings to your life. That you look forward to. I like to say, let's call it colorful. Let's call it
Yes.
colorful, not
Yes.
colorblind.
Thank you. Thank you. And it
Yeah.
it it was like what I was telling Carrie a little bit earlier today. I consider myself so incredibly fortunate to get to spend this time with you and talk with you about these things because watching your videos online and this sort of it's you're such an incredibly dynamic educator. And the fact that I get to spend a couple of hours with you just like soaking it up. It is
Oh,
you get curious as don't say the word lecture. Okay, cool. It's not a
yes.
lecture. What it is, it's a collaboration. But more than anything, I just want to like soak it up. And then
Yes.
whenever you say something that is so incredibly impactful on
Mhm.
me and my perspectives on these kinds of things, I just want to take a second and say, hey, I like that a lot. And let's dig a little around it. Just because I think that's so important for people, especially people who look and feel like me, to
Yes.
hear these things.
Yes,
It's
yes.
so important to have these conversations. It's not awkward. It's
Mm-mm.
not uncomfortable. As long as everyone coming to the table is looking to learn more about what it is that's going on.
Yes, absolutely.
It is a genuine interest in knowing more about that. That's why I'm so excited you're here. Among other reasons, you're so fun to talk to. You're so engaging, charismatic, all these wonderful things. And you have done so much. You come from a point of so much experience and knowledge that it behooves me to be in your presence and just kind of like osmose this.
Aw,
You are
thank
putting it
you.
on my plate, and I'm sitting here with fork and spoon and my napkins tucked in my neck. I'm like, let's go.
Well, I'm having a great time talking with you.
Wonderful. Thank you. The reason I don't mean to like stop it. What I want to do is I took notes, and there are so many of these wonderful things that I saw in your videos that I want to make sure. It says here, fell into teaching.
Yes.
And I would like to say to you that if you want to say no to it, chances are you're on the right path.
I know. I
From
know.
all of the things that you have described today and the time we get to spend together, it's just like, no, didn't want to do
No.
that. No.
Yes.
Perfect. Then that is the first word on the road to yes, because that's clearly probably something we want to investigate. Now, if it stays a no, rock and roll. And chances are good. Some of the best parts are going to start with no.
That's right. It's true. And
Oh,
I also appreciate that I have people in my life
yes.
that speak to me, and
Yes.
that question me and that challenge me.
Mhm.
Because when I started running into those roadblocks when I moved to Richmond,
Uh-huh.
one of my first impulses was because I was not used to being in a place where people didn't want to hear what I had to say. Do you know what I mean? Like they weren't interested.
Yes.
Like, or I was not the person who didn't get invited to the party. You know what I mean? Like
Thank
that
you.
never was my experience, but
Right.
I was having that experience in Richmond. And the first thing that I wanted to do was leave,
Yeah.
right? So I started looking to leave. I started like looking for other jobs on still on the East Coast, but looking.
Right.
And the thing is, three of them came available to me, and one person, one university wanted to hire me on the spot.
Yeah.
And so I all of a sudden, and then I was like, oh my God, that was pretty. So it's not that I can't get a job.
Okay.
I can certainly get a job. Then my mother calls me and my mother says, you think you came to Richmond for you. You didn't come to Richmond for you.
Uh-oh.
She said, she said, if you leave, you should leave on your own terms because there's a calling for you to leave. But if there is none and you're just picking up because it's uncomfortable, because you feel unappreciated, or that you're running into all these obstacles, if that's why you're leaving, then you're stepping outside of your purpose. She said, you came there for other people, not for you.
Ooh.
You came there because there are people who don't have the voice to say what you can say,
Yes.
don't have the credentials to say what you can say. And you need to help them be able to say it. You need to be a facilitator for them so that they can reach where they're supposed to reach.
Yo mama's a
Um,
wise woman.
and I was like, ugh, when she said that.
Don't you
Oh,
hate it when they're so right it hurts? Oh, it's
yeah.
just the worst.
I was like, I wanted to get out of here, but at that point, I couldn't do it. I
After
could
that?
because she challenged. she challenged why I was leaving,
Yep. Yes.
and so even though I didn't at that point, I didn't want to stay.
Yeah.
And I had these other offers. So if I wanted to leave, I could have taken them.
Yes.
Um, she said, "No, you shouldn't do that." Now, my mother doesn't, I'm a grown woman. Clearly,
Of
I make my
course.
own choices,
Sure.
but I knew she was right. When somebody's right, that's what I'm saying. When you surround yourself with wise counsel,
Yes.
and you open yourself up to hear and to listen, because sometimes people can see things you can't see.
Often.
Yeah,
You're too
and
close.
because you're too involved, too
Yep.
engrossed, and perhaps you're even engrossed in your own pain
Oh,
and your
yeah.
own discomfort,
Of course.
that it's hard for you to see what could potentially happen. She's like, "It's not gonna be this way always. You're not, it's going to change, but
Yes.
you've got to hold the ground until the change comes." So,
Yeah. Because
that's why I stayed.
you brought it. You brought the change, and it's one of those things too, like we were talking about a little earlier, is it, am I running away from this or am I running towards something else?
That's right. That's
Running
right.
toward is a very different animal than running away,
Yes,
and I
yes.
can do that all day long. Running away is a very different spirit. Yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
absolutely. And
Yes.
I love the fact that so many of the things, like, you excel at so many wonderful things and open yourself to it so that you can, and you
Mhm,
build
mhm,
and you grow and you bring others with you. You inspire them to go with you into these
mhm,
new places. And I love that because you make sure before you go somewhere, from what you've been talking with us today, that this is really where you're going. I said no.
mhm.
I said no. I said no. And they keep
Yes.
telling you why. And each reason is better and better and better. And they continue to
Mhm.
build that stack or that pile. You're like, okay. And then you
Okay.
break through. It's
Mhm,
like a paywall. You have to
mhm.
get so many coins from the game before you can get through it. And there
Oh,
you go.
yes, yes.
Right? Oh, I love it.
Mhm.
Now, after watching your videos, there are a couple of things that I wanted to hear more from you about specifically.
Okay.
Zank Ofa.
Sankofa,
Thank you, help
Sankofa.
me. I'm sorry because I wrote it down as thank, and then I heard the S. I was like, "Wait, I got that wrong." Go back and get it.
Right.
No shame in that exploration, gathering the pieces of me that were scattered, lost, and or stolen.
Mhm.
Could you speak a little bit more on that for us, please? Because I think that is a wonderful
It's
topic.
a it is a life principle for me, and
Yeah.
it's something that I share liberally with other people,
Okay.
that, it's comes from a West, African. Ghana specifically is where I gathered it
Mhm.
from. And the story goes, in their folklore, the story goes, if a man goes on a journey and he gets down the road and he realizes that there's something he forgot, Sankofa, go back and get it. There's no shame in forgetting Sankofa. But if that same man goes down the road on a journey, realizes that he's forgotten something, but his pride won't let him go back, and then he gets to the end of the journey and realizes the thing he needed the most is the thing he forgot. That is a shame. For
Amen.
that man, it is a shame.
Yes.
So, Sankofa, go back and get it. So, being a Black woman in America, I recognize my ancestry and my history um, was intentionally circumvented from me. Like we were stolen people.
Yes.
We were stolen people, and the intent basically was to destroy our connection to our culture and that continuum. And so clearly, that is something as Black people in America we have been working on ever since. Like that started right when we left the continent. A lot of people think it didn't happen to no.
Oh, no.
From the moment, that's why we have the Middle Passage. People were jumping off of that boat.
Yes.
People would rather die than to be in bondage. So there was always, always, always a resistance. However, once we were enslaved and on the plantation, and then they attempted to colonize our minds as
Yes.
well, and acculturate us into this Eurocentric model
Yep.
of what is good and what is bad, and everything from us was bad, and everything from Europe was good,
Right.
and that my entire education was about that. I'm talking all the way from, primary school all the way through, definitely centered the value and the primacy of whiteness and white culture. I had to Sankofa. In order to find myself, I had to go back to my origin, like you talk about, the origin point,
Yes.
and gather all the pieces that were attempted, that were lost, that were stolen, that were cast aside for whatever reason. I had to start gathering those pieces so that I could put myself back together in who I was supposed to be and in what my purpose was supposed to,
Yes.
entail. So I use it metaphorically for, like, when I teach acting, for example. Actors are taught, the show must go on, and they in an audition, for example, they might mess up something, they might drop something, and rather than stopping and saying, "Excuse me, I'm so sorry, can I go back?" They just keep going, and when they get to the end, they're unsatisfied because they didn't have the thing they needed
Yep.
to get them to the end. And I am so thankful when an actor asks that permission, says, excuse me, I'm sorry, may I?" I go, "Yes,
Yes.
please go
By all
back,
means.
because
Yes.
you messed up, but I know too."
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm here receiving it, and it's not, I saw it go off.
Yes.
So why don't we, right? And that saying, "This is your audition. Cover the ground you stand on." You
Yes.
don't have to keep going. If there's a mistake, go back and get the thing so
Yes.
that you can finish. Even if you don't get the job, you get the satisfaction
Yes.
of finishing the way you wanted to finish.
Amen.
Right. And so that is everything. That builds your self-esteem.
Yes.
That builds your confidence in who you are as an artist,
Yes.
that you're able to command the space and cover the ground. So I use it that way. It's a very important principle to me, that
Agree.
we are imperfect, that we do make mistakes, but the thing is, you have to acknowledge that you did and not pretend that you didn't,
Yes.
because everyone sees that you did.
Right. I if I might just inject a little anecdote here, I sing with a Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons cover group,
Yes.
and we're on tour right now, and, they have another show that's called 4x4, Beatles, Beach Boys, Bee Gees, and Motown. Well, we're doing the Beach Boys section, and we are dancing for our lives. We're gasping for air, trying to keep those high notes. I'm dying, and my shoe comes untied. And I
Mm.
can't take a moment because I have choreography and it is
Mhm.
going like literally 90 to nothing. When we get to the end of this choreographical break, I stop and I put my microphone under my arm and I bend down to tie my shoes.
Mhm.
The entire audience erupts into applause.
'Cause they saw it.
They saw it, and it was making them absolutely crazy town. Every member of the hundreds of people. We have been singing for 57 minutes, and the thing that got the largest amount of applause thus far in said production was me fixing the thing that was wrong that everyone knew was wrong.
Right, right.
Take your moment. And we had a really great moment too, because I stood up and I just hollered at him. I was like, "You mean to tell me that this is the thing that gets you excited? This is the thing? I should have done the whole show with this shoe untied." And it's that just came. That was such a very clear example of what you were talking about.
Yes.
Pick it up.
Pick
Pick
it
it
up.
up. We all
Yes.
see the mistake. Don't
Yes.
ignore it. We are all
Yes.
here experiencing the exact same thing. And something that you mentioned in that too, If you forget it, you go back to get it.
That's right.
The verb changes when you leave it behind.
Mhm.
I have forgotten it, therefore I'm going back to get it. That
Mhm.
is my Zonkofa. Zonkofa?
Sankofa.
Sankofa. Thank you.
Sankofa.
I'm sorry. I,
Mhm.
I need to write this down so I can actually
Mhm.
pronounce it the way it appears in my head. If you leave it behind, it is no longer forgotten.
Mhm.
It is intentionally left.
That's right.
And that is
That's
a
right.
very, very different thing than a forgotten, remembered, retrieved,
That's right.
forgotten, remembered, and left.
Mhm.
And I think that that makes a big difference in who that person is, that kind of artist they are, that kind of entity they're sort
Yes.
of embodying. You
Yes.
forget it,
Yes.
you realize its importance, and you go back to retrieve it because you know you're
Yes.
going to need it. And because the whole system knows you've left it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about authenticity. I was
Yes.
like, don't you think people crave authenticity?
Oh my
Because
gosh.
there's so little of it. People are
In this
not
day and
brave enough
age,
to be authentic.
starving. And
So when
ah,
you did that, they saw themselves too.
yes.
I mean, and they connected with you
Yes. Yes.
on a
Even
human level.
I'm no longer the performer. I'm James with an untied shoelace. And that's
Yes,
what people crave. Yes,
they
it is
crave it.
heightened because we are performers, we are artists. It's
Mhm.
also very relatable whenever you either split your pants or untie your shoe becomes untied or for you blow off a cummerbund because God knows I've done that a bajillion times as well.
Yes,
It's the acknowledgement of the foible, it's the correction and the
yes,
resolution.
that's
And I
right.
love that.
You
So
know, my I have been I have stopped a show before because of that.
great.
Like where I've stopped it for myself when I was the one on stage, and
Mhm.
I've also, as the director, stopped a show before because we cannot continue. We have to go. Hold. We're going back. Sankofa, because we must have this thing that
Yes.
we left.
Yes.
We can't go forward without it. And it's like, pardon us, please accept our apologies. However,
Yes. This is that
and you
important.
believe me, you'll be grateful that we got it to
Right.
bring with us
Yeah.
on the journey. And people are. It's live theater. That's the difference. It's
Ah,
live. They're craving that authenticity.
oh my gosh. And how much do they love it? What's the thing they talk about when they leave the theater? Is it the play or is it
Mhm,
the moment of authenticity we all shared? That
mhm.
moment where the whole thing, the lights go down, the grease paint stops smelling, and we're like people in a box.
Exactly. I remember one time I was seeing Patti LaBelle. We were on a ship. She was, we were on one of those cruises, which I do not do. I did this one. It's
Okay,
adventures.
okay.
But she, so she's singing with the cruise band,
Mhm.
and, they start the song in the wrong key.
Oh, ooh.
No, so first she's going with it, and then she goes, "Wait, wait, 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 wait. Stop. Excuse me." And then she like, "Y'all, you started in the wrong key.
Right.
The key is this."
Yeah.
Da, 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 da. By the time I get to wherever she said she was going, this will not work. So we got to fix this. And we all were like, I mean, yeah, she goes, "Excuse us while we do some housekeeping." And then she
100%. Oh my gosh. And I'm just like, and I was here to watch it.
Yes, and
This
she
is
goes,
my souvenir
and
moment.
it goes, ba-da, 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 she's like
Yes.
teaching them,
Uh-huh.
like in front of us.
It's a workshop basically. You've gone from a performance to now you get to be part of this and it now you're a part of the creative
Yes,
process.
and I love
It's
it. I
amazing.
love it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. And something we were talking about a moment ago is the resolution. I loved something that you said in one of the classes, the videos that I was watching earlier. It is the theme of a story is
Ah,
not resolution.
mhm.
It is revelation.
That's right.
In
That's right.
the African tradition,
That's right.
please help me with that
Say a
so
little
I don't
more.
mess it up.
Okay. So, again, like I told you, like, there are certain people, right, in your life that you intersect with, and they are forever. Like that is forever.
Yes.
And one of my intersections is James Baldwin.
Oh,
James Baldwin, yes, I did have the opportunity to meet him and to sit at a table with him and to have a drink with him
nice.
um, when I was in New York. But it's his work that has been kind of my artistic muse and a transformative force in my life and the work that I do. And it's where I got the aha moment about my classical training, because I studied at Carnegie Mellon University, but I also, it's conservatory training. And I also studied in London, England at the Central School of Drama, Speech, and Film. Again, classical, training. But it's where when I got really acquainted with James Baldwin's work, where I recognized what was happening to me as an artist, that I was in the wrong I was in the wrong form, I was in the wrong lane. That classical pedagogy was not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse comes from the Black aesthetic, the African continuum, which James Baldwin describes story like this. A story is impelled by the
yes.
necessity to reveal itself. Therefore, a story can have nothing to hide, at least not intentionally. This also means that there is no resolution to a story, that the aim of the story is revelation in what we make of the questions with which the story leaves us. Now, he also goes on to say, plot, on the other hand, answers all questions it pretends to pose. So I was like, anyone who studied literature in middle school or high school has been taught the formula for the well-made play. Where we have exposition, where we have plot, where we have conflict, where we have climax, where we have resolution and denouement, a beginning, a middle, and end. We all have to start at the same place and we all end at the same place.
Yep.
Right. So I was like, for Colored Girls does not fit that model.
Right.
For Colored Girls who have considered suicide does not. It is poetic drama. It is poetic drama, and it also is not linear. It's not in a line. And the plot, it's story. It's based in story, which is very Afrocentric. The storytelling.
Yes.
Very, very Afrocentric. So James Baldwin liberated me from the well-made play model, the Eurocentric model, and brought me over to the African continuum, which is story is impelled by the necessity to reveal itself. And we do not have to worry about resolution because there is no resolution. That the aim of the story is revelation, which means you might have a different revelation than me.
Yes.
Because you're bringing something different into the story. You, as you witness the story, you're bringing something different than I am, because your experience and your life has taken you on a different journey.
Yes.
So how you perceive what the story is giving will generate different questions than my perception of the story and how it's hitting me. And that's all. You see how much that opens up.
Yes.
This thing called the dramatic form to everyone.
Yes. And how individual.
You don't have to know a lot of stuff. You can just come into the story.
Yep. And it's so individual, like what you're saying, like everyone's ingredients are different.
Yes.
We all put them in the bowl, in our own bowls, and the thing that we get from the play, from the piece, goes into the bowl as well. And what we throw in the oven and what comes out is going to be a wildly different dish from person to person.
That's
meaning that, everyone walks away with something hopefully revelatory, something that they can continue to ask themselves about and why they reacted to it in such a manner.
Yes.
Because that's the thing that I like to do. I was like, how does that make us feel when we say this?
Mhm. Well, see, the
Love
thing is,
that.
though, we live in a culture in Western society, we live in a
Mhm.
culture that diminishes people if they don't get it. Right? Like
Okay.
that the play is saying this, "Don't you get it?" You know, diminishing them because their, take or they don't understand it in that way.
Yes.
Their experience is different than that. You know, as if we're all supposed to come to the same conclusion,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and
It's
I
very
love it.
that's very patriarchal.
Oh, yeah?
It's a very oppressive kind of thing, and who gets to say what's a well-made play?
Thank you, implying that all the others ain't. I
Who gets
beg
to
your
say that?
pardon. Right, exactly,
Yeah,
and why do we all have to follow that?
that's right, that's right.
Who's corralling? I don't understand why this whole thing is happening exactly like this. And 2, it's so funny that I love that you said that as well. Let's talk about, "Oh, you just didn't get it."
You didn't get it,
Well,
yeah.
clearly you just didn't get it. You're not
Mhm.
smart enough, creative enough, imaginative enough, creative, any of those things,
Yes, yes.
implying a lack in me
That's right.
whenever, maybe that's not what's happening here.
Mhm, mhm.
My ingredients were different, and so my experience was different.
That's right.
And we're having a potluck today, and maybe you just ain't gonna like what I got to bring.
Exactly.
My Corningware ain't full of what you're looking to eat today, and
Right,
that is
right.
fine because I am
Mhm.
nourished. Yeah.
That's right. My grandmother had an expression where she would say, you know, where I would say something, you know, this is when I was in college and I'm like trying to bring some, I'm try- trying to bring some knowledge to my grandmother
Uh-huh.
who didn't, I think she had a sixth grade education, but she was one of the smartest women people,
Yes.
forget woman, man, smartest people I've ever known. And she would say, you know, I would be talking and say, so, well, the mainstream, this, that, the other, in the mainstream, da 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 da. And she would say, huh, the mainstream is the stream I'm standing in. She said, that's the stream that nourishes me, that feeds me, that recognizes me. I don't know what other stream there is, but my mainstream is the one I'm standing in.
Amazing. It truth, because sometimes it
Yeah.
just it's just one of those things that's real nice that you have all these fancy words. Let me just let you in
Yes.
on what's happening.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
because that was another thing that you had said, and it's very similar to what we're just talking. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be present.
That's right.
How great is that? How
Yes.
much easier is everything and so much more enjoyable when I'm that
Yes.
pliable, when I
Yes.
am that open. I am literally giving myself to the experience that is unfolding in front of me, to be moved, to be encouraged, to be
Absolutely.
influenced, to
Mhm.
be colored in a way that this is my intersection moment.
Yes.
This is me taking this with me from here on out.
And so get out of your mind
Yes.
and get in your body.
Amen. Okay? And
Yeah.
I saw this beautiful saying the other day is that I love these little poetry moments. On social media all the time because I work in
Mhm.
social media in Vegas. And one of these things is like you live your whole life as yellow. And then one day you bump into a blue. And for the rest of your life, you're a shade of green.
How about that? Yeah. Mhm.
Oh,
Yes.
how wonderful that I have allowed this to happen.
Yes.
How wonderful that I had no flipping choice in the matter.
Mhm.
That this happened and I am forever different and
Forever different.
better.
Transformational moments, rite of
Yes.
passage
Yeah.
moments, which
Oh,
happen, by the way, your whole life,
literally.
as long as you have breath to breathe,
Yes.
if you allow yourself
And it
that
doesn't have to be a
opportunity.
big thing. I love that you
Mm-mm.
said that. So you said that farther back, and you were just like, it doesn't have to be this grand moment. It doesn't
No.
have to be the 11th hour moment. It
Mm-mm.
is these things that you don't know. They're literally putting your whole life on a different trajectory until you look back to see where it happened.
That's right. It's like when I was in the 8th grade, which everyone knows is a very that is a very pivotal moment in people's growth and development.
Yes.
Sometimes people are um, traumatized at that point, and then it's very difficult for them forward, going forward after that. Um, but I was in a school that was predominantly white. I was the only Black girl in my class. It was a private school. The kids were, you know, and I always had a problem with history teachers, always, because because the history that they were teaching didn't
Oh,
jive with and so
gotcha.
I was always challenging, particularly American history, particularly US history. I was
Okay.
always questioning and interrogating. And I had this particular history teacher in 8th grade who was tired of hearing from me, tired of like deal. Now here we are in a private school. I think there are 12 kids in my class. It's not
Right.
like he has a big, I mean, it's not like a public school where there's 30 kids in the classroom or something.
Right.
And he just kept ignoring me, kept ignoring, like I'm putting up, I want to speak. I'm raising my hand. I'm not talking out of turn.
Right.
Uh, and he just won't call on me, and he said something and I couldn't help it. I just said, "You are a racist, fascist pig." And
Nice.
he said, "Get out," like that, and he sent me to the office. So, I was expelled from school, and
Oh
my
my
parents had to come
gosh.
pick me up. And my mom asked me what happened, and I
Mhm.
told her the story. And she said, "Okay." She didn't like
Yeah.
I was expecting to be like reprimanded and, punished and whatever. She said nothing. My dad came home. We had a conversation. Basically just asked me to tell him, and I told him. And so then they made an appointment with the headmaster of the school. Isn't that funny? The headmaster of the private schools. Anyway, made an appointment, and we came to the appointment to discuss this. Now uh, the teacher that was involved was not there. They purposely didn't have that person in the room. I think they should have been in the room. But
Agree.
anyway, so they come in, and the headmaster's like touting all the benefits of the school and how grateful I should be for being there, and how what a incredible education I'm getting, and blah blah blah. And my father listened. He listened, nodded and listened. And then he said, "Are you finished?" And
Here
then,
comes the education.
yeah, yeah. He said, "Yeah." So then he turned to me and he said, "Do you have anything else to say?" And I said, Nothing that I haven't already said about, the situation in the classroom and what happened." And so he said, "Okay." So then he looked at the headmaster, and he said, "Now, we understand this is a very good school. We understand that what you offer here is above average, and that, it is a wonderful educational institution. But what I want you to know is that when we looked at whether or not we should bring our daughter or allow our daughter to come to this school, we looked at the pros and the cons. And we want you to know there were more cons than pros." And the headmaster looked kind of funny. He goes, "I want you to know that for Tanya to be in this school is a sacrifice, and that we want you to know that she is bringing more to this school than this school is giving her in return. So if this conversation is about changing her in order to fit into your school, we are not prepared to have that conversation."
You tell him, Dad.
And so at that moment,
Oh,
that I was like, "Oh my God, my father just gave me agency. He gave me
mhm.
agency over my education, that I
Yes.
have a right to my education, and I have a right to interrogate what I'm being taught."
Yes.
And from that moment, I became a voracious learner because
Amazing.
I had agency over my own education.
It was
I
made
was
clear.
seeking knowledge.
Yes.
I was not seeking to be a carbon copy, or to answer true false or to, just regurgitate
Yep.
whatever the lecture was.
Right.
That was not what I was doing. And my parents supported me in that.
That's
So
amazing.
it's transformative.
The goal is not to be the model student. The goal is to gain the knowledge.
That's right.
And I think a lot of people miss that point because
That's
they're
right.
taught to behave, they're taught to sit
That's
still, they're
right.
taught to do this and that and the other thing. And that
Mhm.
is not the crux of the educational process. That you're there to learn, to gain the
That's right.
knowledge.
That's right.
And I love your use of language is so fun for me. I love words. Logophile from the word go. I love them. I love them. I love them. The
Uh-huh.
fact that you use the word interrogate.
Yes.
You don't use the word question. Question is mild. Interrogate, in my mind, literally, the picture that conjures is the fact that you are grabbing whatever that is and you are wringing every drop of
Yeah.
knowledge from the fiber.
Yes.
You're not picking at it delicately with thumb and forefinger. You are wrenching it to make sure that everything you want out of it pours out on the table. And then you go over it with both hands to get what you
Mhm.
want out of it. I
Mhm.
love the image that makes in my mind.
I mean, I wanna look at the marrow inside the bone.
Oh, marrow. Yes. Ooh,
Mhm.
yes. It's just
Mhm.
delicious talking to you because you are so intentional with the words that you use because that's why we have them.
That's right.
They're there to be used specifically. And the fact that you use words like intersect,
Mhm.
interrogate, impelled,
Mhm.
conciliation, these are very specific uses for very specific ideas. And people will often ask, well, don't you mean? No, no, I
No.
don't. I don't mean that. What I mean is exactly
Mhm.
what I said, which is
Mhm.
shockingly why I said it like that.
Mhm.
And we're
Mhm.
going back to the paper we've pinned to our shirt.
That's right. These things,
These
yes.
things,
Mhm.
oh, I insist upon
Mhm.
them. There's another I verb that I love. You and me and I verbs, I'm a fan. Yes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Dr. T, thank you so, so much for joining us today. It
My
has been a
pleasure.
true pleasure. Oh my word. Thank you. I apologize. Lady, anyone out there listening, we're so glad you're here. As always, thank you so much for joining us here at Radical Joy. The accolades, the accomplishments, so many wonderful things. I promise you, we're going to put about Dr. T in the notes for this episode because I don't want you to miss a single morsel of amazing that is this woman. So
Oh,
just because we didn't talk about it today doesn't mean there isn't literally tomes written about the things that she has accomplished. And I look forward to you reading more about her and who she is and what she does with all of her communities that she gets to influence. Ooh,
yes, and be a part of, and they
yes.
influence me. They
Yes.
influence me too. Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
Again, conversation. So,
Mhm.
as always, thank you everyone for joining us here at Radical Joy. If this is your first episode, congratulations. You've hit a high point, friends. That's just it. You have absolutely been in some of the most incredible intersections we've been able to enjoy here at Radical Joy. If this is not your first episode, here is my promise to you that we're going to do our dead level best to bring this kind of content to you so that we can all grow, learn, evolve, progress together in
Mhm.
the incredible amount I feel we've done in this time together today. As always, if you're a review person, thank you so much. Please put your opinions into the cyberverse. Review this podcast, especially if you're listening to these episodes. Give us a 5-star review, take a screenshot, reach out to us to let us know that you've done that. We will be more than happy to send you a token of our appreciation. It might be a sticker, it might be a journal, it might be any number of wonderful things that we have here to offer here at Radical Joy, though it will pale in comparison to the nourishment that we've been able to provide today. I am so proud of this episode and or episodes if this actually breaks into multiples. Dr. T, thank you so, so much for being with us today.
Thank you. And I love the name of your podcast, Radical Joy. I love it.
Thank you.
Love it, love it, love it.
It almost feels like an act of radicalism, just to
Yes.
insist
That's
on
right.
being joyful whenever things seem a little dark or bleak or however you want to look at it. Nah, we've still got things to enjoy, we've still got things to celebrate, and we still have gratitude to offer for those things that we have.
That's right. An attitude of gratitude.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
All
you
right.
so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you for the invitation. I love being here with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you all out there who are listening as well.
The bottom line is, use your words, friends. Thank you for joining us again in this moment of radical joy. If this is your first time, we're so happy you're here. Take a moment to check out our archive. See if there's something else that fires you up, rekindles the joy in you. And hey, spread the word if you enjoyed it. We welcome reviews and messages. Let me know what you want to talk about. I rarely run out of things to say. So if there's something on your mind or heart, I want to hear from you. Don't forget, there is no shame in joy. I am not a therapist or a medical professional. If you're experiencing a mental health emergency, please call 911. This content and other content produced by CLW Studios and affiliated partners is not therapy, and nothing in this content indicates a therapeutic relationship. Any opinions of guests on this podcast are their own and do not represent the opinions of James or CLW Studios. Please consult with your therapist or seek one in your area if you're experiencing mental health symptoms. Anything in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Learn more about James and CLW Studios. Follow the link in the show notes. Don't forget to leave a review, and hey, we'll send you a sticker. Just send a screenshot and let us know where you want it sent. Have a great week, and we will see you next Wednesday for another dose of radical joy. Love y'all.